Hey, it's Smart Eating Week, so let's take a look at how to make better choices when dealing with packaged foods. There are tens of thousands of products in the supermarket, and of course not all of them are good. We'll take a look at both Australian and US food labels. First, the Australian one. So you'll see here on the Australian Nutrition Information panel, it firstly gives you the number of servings per package and the serving size. Now this is a key area to be careful of because sometimes manufacturers have chosen a serving size because it makes their product look favourable, when really it's not a realistic serving size. So look at whether or not the amount they say is a serve is what you intend to eat. You'll then see all the nutrients that are required and two columns, a per serve and a per 100 grams. Use the per 100 gram column to compare between products, and use the per serve column to determine what you're about to eat. So to judge whether or not you're about to consume more fat than you're aiming for, or too many calories, or whatever. You'll also see down the bottom there's a potential allergens warning. And here's the US food label. You can see it's pretty similar, however there's a few key differences. You can see at the top you've got the number of serves per container and the serving size. Now until recently in the US, the serving size was a recommended serving size, which was created many years ago, and in many situations did not relate to how much people actually were eating. It's certainly been found that people are eating a lot more than those recommended serving sizes, so now these serving sizes must comply with a new list of commonly consumed amounts of particular foods. So they're a little more realistic. The calories are given in a large font there, and that's recently gotten bigger. And then you can see that you've got the grams of different nutrients there. There isn't a separate per 100 grams column. There's a percent daily value, which helps you, I guess, to identify how much this food is contributing to your overall recommended intake for that nutrient. So if, for example, you could see that 90% of your fat for the day could come from the amount of fat in this serving size, you'd know that it was high. Another key change is a great one, which is under the total carbohydrate, you've got dietary fibre, you've got total sugars, and now there's a new added sugars figure. Now that's really valuable, and we could do with that in Australia as well. So these are the added sugars, which does not include the fructose that would naturally be occurring in a fruit in the product, or the lactose that naturally occurs in milk in the product. So that's really quite valuable. And then you've got a list of nutrients at the bottom, a little similar to the Australian label. Now some targets when looking at the Australian Nutrition Information panel would be for total fat to be less than 10 grams per 100 grams. For saturated fat to be less than 3 grams per 100 grams. And usually we're aiming for saturated fat to be no more than 1/3 of the total fat. For fibre, aim for 7.5 grams per 100 grams. And for sugar, less than 15 grams per 100 grams. But because we haven't got that added sugar component to the Australian food label, if fruit is in the first 3 ingredients, increase that allowance to about 20 grams per 100 grams. And sodium, the target's less than 400 milligrams per 100 grams. I like to look at things from a very practical point of view and at a per serve level. So this is useful for the US as well. So when we're looking at a 100 calorie snack, when we're thinking about a weight loss snack, I've just identified what I've considered to be an everyday choice. So this slide might be worth keeping. And so one key thing there is to look for less than 5 grams of sugar in a snack bar, or anything really that contains any added sugar. Just look for less than a teaspoon in a snack size. And for nutrition claims and using symbols, Low fat criteria in both Australia and US is less than 3 grams per 100 grams. It's a bit difficult for you to work out whether it complies in the US because you don't see the figures per 100 grams, but the guidelines for use of the claim are the same. Reduced fat or salt needs to have at least 25% less than the original product. No added sugar means no sugar added during production. It can still have the natural sugar. Diet will usually mean artificially sweetened. And in Australia, we've got the Health Star rating, which compares similar products based on set criteria. It's recently had some improvements, and I'm expecting that it will continue to evolve over time because there still does seem to be some unfair allocation of stars in my assessment. And low GI certified means that the product has been tested for the glycemic index. And remember, the glycemic index is a rating of how quickly that food raises your blood sugar level. So low GI or low glycemic index is ideal. Now, all food products will also have an ingredients list, and that's a really useful thing to look at, particularly if you're trying to understand what the nutrition information panel is telling you. Look for words used for the same nutrient. If saturated fat, sugar or salt are in the first 3 ingredients, consider whether or not a different product is a better choice. But here's a whole list of ingredients that really mean saturated fat, sugar and salt in alternative terms. And often you'll find in a product that there's 3 or 4 different ingredients that are all actually sugar. So that enables them to move those ingredients further down the list so that it's not first or second on the list, when in fact if you added them up, it may well be that sugar or salt or fat, saturated fat, may be the first ingredient. Now, Paul from the Portion Perfection Facebook group asked me to look at the Mars protein bar. So here's the nutrition information panel and the ingredients list. So first of all, we can see that there's 1 serve per pack of 57 grams, so the expectation is you eat the whole bar. There's 200 calories per bar, which is about the right amount for a weight maintenance snack. If you're looking for a weight loss snack, then just half of this bar for morning snack and half for afternoon snack or the next day. And if you've had bariatric surgery, then 200 calories is really equivalent to an ideal meal size, so it's more a meal replacement. There's 19 grams of protein in the bar, which is a good dose. It's nice and high, and it is possible for the body to absorb that amount, so it's not too high. When we think about the nutrition targets that we looked at, we saw a target of 10 grams per 100 grams of fat total, and there's less than that in here. A target of 3 grams per 100 grams of saturated fat, and there's a bit more than that here. And if I jump down to the ingredients list, I can see about the first 5 ingredients are protein-based ingredients, which is where most of that protein comes from. Then we've got a few versions of palm oil. So in terms of saturated fat, we've got palm oil, we've got butter, we've got palm fat, all contributing to that saturated fat. In terms of sugars, we've got 13.1 grams per serving. So that's, if we looked at the amount in a 100 calorie serve, it's a little bit high. And that sugar is coming from multiple sugar ingredients where we've got sugar, we've got glucose syrup, we've got invert sugar syrup, and a couple of forms of sugar. We've also got a couple of artificial sweeteners in here, including maltitol. And then we've also got fructooligosaccharides, both of which could cause bloating for some people. So I just forewarn you of that. So overall, this is pretty much on par with a meal replacement drink. It's got a good amount of protein. It would classify as a highly processed food. There's not too many pantry ingredients you see on that ingredients list. So any questions, post them below and I'm happy to answer them.